You're listening to Dateline Latin America, Tear Gas and Tango with
Joe Goldman, 37 years working with ABC out of all of South America, 42 years living here.
And me, Daniel Schweimler, 19 years with the BBC, and then another 13 years or so with Al Jazeera English, also roaming across Latin America.
They'll be sitting at a kitchen table in Buenos Aires talking about their journalistic adventures across the region, covering earthquakes, flooding and fires, talking to presidents, charlatans, sports stars and other newsmakers. In short, journalism and the state of the world.
Well, welcome back, Joe. You've arrived back in Buenos Aires just in time to get the peak, the height of Argentina's World Cup fever.
Absolutely. Daniel, tell me what it was like. You have experienced a week that must seem like a few months.
It's been a bittersweet experience for me as an England fan in Buenos Aires. I mean, I watched with English friends, all must be said, all of us married to Argentines. So I felt sorry for our kids because people kept asking them, which one are you going to support, England or Argentina? And these poor kids, you know, if it was their mums, they were saying, oh, Argentina, por supuesto. And when the dads asked them, yes, England, of course. And so what actually came to the game, I don't know. So we watched, obviously, England beat Norway. And then we were cheering on, you know, we live here, we appreciate Argentine football, you've got to be mesmerised, appreciative of the skills of Lionel Messi. So we were cheering on Argentina against Switzerland until it became apparent, thinking, shit, they're going to win this. That means we're going to have an England-Argentina semi-final. And I was a bit torn by that, you know, because I'm going to support England at the same time. You have to make a choice. You're forced to make a decision. For me, it was an easy one, but then all of a sudden, you're an Englishman in Buenos Aires, surrounded by Argentines who are fervent. They're so excited, you know. I mean, this is a country where the World Cup, when it's being played, as each game, as Argentina progress, it just gets bigger and bigger and more intense.
I would see it with the Argentines living in New York, who I hung out with a bit. I have to say that living the last almost a month in the States, I was shocked at how little, at least in the Northeast corridor, how little the World Cup affected people. From where I was living in Manhattan, there's a huge sports bar right in front of my apartment, and I was expecting it to be filled every night with people from whatever games were going on. Absolutely not. They were watching baseball.
I mean, do you think it's because they're still wallowing in New York Knicks' victory just before the World Cup? Is that partly it, do you think? Or?
I think that's partially what's going on in New York is spent from what happened with the Knicks. They're tired. But I don't know if it would have been different if the Knicks hadn't done this.
Right. I also wonder, I mean, football seems to thrive in the US where there's a large Latin American community. And the Latin American community in New York, isn't it predominantly Puerto Rican, Dominican Republic and Cuban? 3 countries where football is no big deal.
Exactly.
Whereas your
in
Mexicans,
fact,
you know...
If you go to Queens, where there are large communities of Colombians and Ecuadorians,
right.
I'm sure I would have seen a different reaction. I was only in Astoria, which is the Greek part of Queens. Greece was not in the World Cup, so they probably just shut their TVs off. In Manhattan, I really saw almost nothing in the way of the World Cup. My son does technical stuff at Rockefeller Center. He was putting up huge screens and setting up viewing posts for people to watch the games. He said hardly anybody came.
Wow. Yeah. Whereas here there was a fan zone in downtown Buenos Aires, which was packed, room for 15,000 people, and the games often here were...
Where was it?
Libertador y Sarmiento, in one of the plazas down there. And, you know, freezing cold. It's been a pretty chilly winter here. Late at night, quite often the kickoffs here were 11 p.m. going on till 1 in the mornings, and they were full. And I came back from one game. I watched it at a friend's house in downtown Buenos Aires, and the game finished at 1 a.m. and I thought it was like it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The streets were full, but there were very few buses. I ended up waiting over an hour for a bus, The bus that then came was so full. This was 1:30 in the morning by this time. People coming back from the game. And this was a weekday, if I remember rightly, as well. So people at work the next day.
A big difference now is the Qatar World Cup was in December.
Yeah.
So we had extreme heat. I remember the day that Argentina won, it must have been like almost 40 degrees. It was very hot out, and still millions of people went to the center. It's been cold, although right now it's pretty warm, I've got to say.
I mean, why? I mean, Argentina, if they win on Sunday, this will be their 4th World Cup. I mean, they've obviously got a record, impressive record. They're the current holders. I mean, there's a lot of theories about why Argentines are so passionate about football. I mean, they're passionate in Brazil, they're passionate in other countries as well. But it seems to mean something extra here. I mean, other countries, there are people who love their football, who get excited. There are people who don't, who will find other things to do. When the World Cup is on in Argentina, even those who don't normally follow football. They follow the World Cup. They're behind the national team. They're draped in the flag. They're decorating their shop fronts, There's something else. It seems like nobody is excluded from the passion, the excitement, the thrill of the World Cup here.
It's really something that I have not been in France or Spain during World Cup. You would know about England, but it does not seem to have the same huge infusion of... I don't want to say nationalism, because I don't think it is, just pride in some way.
Yeah, there's an element of nationalism, I think, but yeah, it is national pride. I mean, my theory, totally untried and untrusted and unscientific, is that Argentina has long been a country that many people here feel, should have done so much better on the world stage, economically, politically. It's done very well culturally. One area where Argentina excels has been on the football pitch. And so this is a time when you can say to the rest of the world, look, we are the best. Did it in 2022, did it in 1986, 1978 with some reservations. But yeah, they've done it, and the rest of the world is watching Argentina and taking notice. And they do it very well. They're not just a good teams. They've produced 2 of the best football players the world has ever seen in Diego Maradona and Lionel Messi, who's 39 for Christ's sakes, and is still. I mean, the England game, he was the difference for me. There were many reasons Argentina won and England lost, but for me, the crux of it, the centre of it, was all about when Lionel Messi decides to turn on the taps.
Yeah, I mean, he looked like, and there was actually a stat that he was walking about 67% of the time, and I would say most of that was at the first 70 minutes of the game, and then he just turned on the juice.
Yeah. And wasn't setting out to score either. I mean, England were probably expecting him to try to score. Basically, he did everything he possibly could to let his team members score. The great crosses, the little dribbles. I don't think he attempted a shot on goal in the second half, but that was never his intention. He was the catalyst for all the other things that
It's
that
almost
happened.
like he's a diversion.
Yeah.
Other players can get into position because three of the defenders are on him.
Yeah.
So
totally.
It's I like to think that Argentina will do good in 4 years even without him. But I don't know. Maybe not.
I don't think so. I disagree. I think they're an all right team. They've got some very good players, obviously. I think in Qatar 4 years ago, the difference, in the final, both 2 very good teams were waiting for their big stars to perform to the maximum. Messi did, Mbappe not so much. If France would have got to the final, I think Mbappe might have been the difference. I mean, Spain is obviously a great team, but it doesn't have a Messi. It doesn't have an Mbappe. Yamal is there, but he's still very young.
I cannot go against Argentina, obviously, but because I've been here 41 years. But it would be nice in some way. If Spain does win, it's really, in some ways, a statement about having a team rather than one star to push you through.
Yeah.
And I really like the fact that Spain has been able to take their team from the early 2000s, 2010, that won the World Cup, and they've had a generational change. and it's been so successful.
Yeah, really.
Really nice.
But
And
European champions, you know, so we're playing the European champions against the current world champions. So
Yes.
in a way, you could argue that's how it should be. And Las Malvinas on Argentinas, we said that kind of reared its head again as the Argentine fans and players were celebrating. I just wonder what's going to happen now. I mean, FIFA have very strict rules about political statements during, before, after matches.
except if it's Donald Trump.
Except if it's Donald Trump, yeah, if he steps in and says, let's leave it, guys, nothing will happen. But do they have to sanction them? When Spanish players a while ago were protesting for Gibraltar to be brought back under Spanish governorship, they got banned for a game, the two Spanish players.
Did they really?
Yeah. So I wonder whether...
In a World Cup?
It
or
was a
in
European, I think it was European,
Okay.
yeah. I wonder whether a similar thing's likely to happen here, whether Lo Celso, I think, was the one who brought the banner out paraded it on the pitch. I mean, most of Argentina, you know, we it's a subject we don't escape for very long. You know, we get ice cream at places called, you know, Heladeria Las Malvinas. There are streets named after it. There are monuments to the guys, the 600 and something guys who died in the 1982 conflict everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a theme. It's a subject constantly, and so most Argentines will have, you know, so yeah, of course they should be ours. Whether that was the right platform on which to make the protest, that's the debate.
I have never, in many decades of covering Argentina, from my U.S. platform, ABC, I have never been asked to do anything related to the Falklands.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Ever. It just shows, I think there's now, once again, I started many years after the conflict.
Whereas I have for the BBC, for obvious reasons, although the embassy, very nice British embassy, very nice people, press office, right at the very beginning they said, we'll answer any questions you like as long as they're not related to the Falkland Islands. We were not going to talk about that. So that's an issue, they belong to the UK, and that's, you know, we're not going to discuss that. So they made that very plain and they stuck to that. So I never bothered with the British embassy to try to get any information. I went there in 2012. There were British veterans touring the island, you know, going to the places where they had fought, where their comrades had fallen, and there were Argentine veterans there at the same time. So, and I've never come across any animosity. In the early days, I was a bit reticent to admit that I was British, and then I came to realise it didn't matter. People were curious to know what I thought, but there was never any animosity. So I've always, you know, like I said, I was interviewing veterans on the islands, and they were the nicest people you could imagine. They didn't blame the British people, they blamed the then government of Margaret Thatcher. They were keen to talk to the British veterans, who I must say were less keen, a little bit more aggressive actually, less keen to talk to the Argentine veterans.
I will just say that what you hear in the distance is the British-built train system that goes through Argentina, including Vicente Lopez, from where we are talking.
Well, lots of people have spoken about that, haven't they? The British influence. You know, they play polo here. There's a kind of cricket playing fraternity. The football introduced, as you say, by the British.
I'm a fan of Newell's Old Boys.
Chaco Forever.
That's
you know,
right, yeah.
Boca Juniors,
Racing.
River Plate, not Rio de la Plata. So there's a lot of that. There was the old branch of Harrods downtown up until the 1990s. The only country which had a branch of Harrods. You know, so there's British schools, isn't there? They're called things like, I can't remember now, St George's, St James's.
Yeah.
So there's a strong British influence. So the Brits were here. You know, it was they say the largest colony that was never a colony, sort of thing, because of the influence. And the Britain actually invaded Buenos Aires. Was it twice in the early 1800s? They actually had control of Buenos Aires for a few weeks, before Argentina, or the then residents, managed to fight back. And then there was another invasion a few years later, which the local residents managed to fight off.
That's
And
right.
there's a yearly battle, isn't there, fought at the Cabildo, a reenactment of the battle fought at the Cabildo, right opposite the government palace, where they dress up in the old uniforms and, and talk about that victory.
Admiral Brown and all kinds of
All
things.
of that, yeah.
Admiral Brown, born in England, I believe.
Yeah, Almirante Brown, yeah.
So I think there's a kind of mixed history, because there are some people who still to this day will say the problem is when we were invaded by the English, we didn't let them win.
Right.
Instead, so you have that element too, which I think is a very negative and a very, we see it today in Javier Milei's government, where he has a picture of Margaret Thatcher.
It's a strong
over
admirer,
his
isn't
desk.
it? Yeah, strong admirer. Doesn't let the fact that she's British get in the way of his admiration for her.
Yeah.
For her politics.
And that has certainly borne, there's been elements of that in how he has reacted to Argentina in the World Cup. And I think there's a big divide. I think, I don't know exactly what happened because I wasn't here, but I've heard that there were, when the Argentine team put up their sign, Malvinas son Argentinas, there was repercussions in the government.
In the British government as well. I mean, Keir Starmer, in his last days as Prime Minister, has called for FIFA to investigate. There's also other investigations going on. And if you saw in Miami about AFA, the Argentine Football Association, were investing some kind of suspicious-looking investments of their ill-gotten gains in Miami. So the FBI are investigating that. And that's another, rivalry. Malay government and the AFA, the Argentine Football Association, are not the best of friends. I mean, AFA, we know, is as dirty as it comes. I mean, it's such a corrupt organisation.
I don't think it's as dirty as Milei.
Quite possibly not, but I suspect it's two rats fighting one another for dominance, for their share of the spoils. I think so Milei is upset. And doesn't he want to, Argentine football clubs, they have elections for president.
He wants them to be privatized.
He wants them to be privatised so that his mates can step in and buy them up, and they can become toys like they often are in other countries, badly run toys of big conglomerates or hedge funds or whatever it may be. Or in Colombia's case, Escobar used to be, pretty much own a football club. So, so I think that's what he would like to see. Take the control away from the fans and put it in the hands of a couple of businessmen.
One of the things that I find wonderful about Argentina, and it's not only in soccer, football, it's in basketball, it's in tennis, it's in women's hockey, that in all these sports, there's a tremendous amount of club participation.
Yeah.
It's not, and the government definitely has in the past given certain funds to these clubs. That has stopped. It stopped first in the Olympic participation, whereas Argentina, it was never an Olympic power, but it always won a few medals here and there in things like rowing, in things like karate, in different areas. Now those areas are suffering dearly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's to do with community as well. I mean, these sporting football associations, I mean, I support, as I've mentioned many times, Argentina's Juniors. And Argentina's Juniors isn't just the football club and the cancha, the stadium. It's also got a huge, great sporting complex, a couple of kilometres away from the ground, which has all these things you've mentioned, the women's hockey and the swimming and a social centre, and the families go there on a Sunday to have an asado. And there's a football team, boys and girls, from ages kind of 5 upwards. And this is the kind of the way the kids often end up playing for, the big team, the big guys. But every sport you can possibly mention is played there, and it's community, it's people from that neighbourhood belong. And one of the things that governments like Milei hate is community. That's where the resistance comes, whether it's Trump, whether it's Nigel Farage, I suspect, Milei certainly, Bolsonaro. They hated community, and these are the prime examples, because it also does come political. You're meeting every Saturday, Sunday to play football, to watch your kids playing football or table tennis or whatever it may be, and you're discussing the issues, local politics, national politics, people getting together, and I think that is right at the heart of Argentine football. it's such a community event.
No, absolutely. And I hope that doesn't get lost in the next few years.
No.
I'm very nervous about it. The Argentina that I love, which has an incredible academic history, which has an incredible history of wonderful health care. I know the train is coming, and normally we would cut off, but I just want to say that hopefully that train does not stop running because the government does not put any kind of money into its operation. As it is louder than it's ever been, the train that goes close to my house, because the company that runs the trains does not put mufflers in anymore.
Ah, right. But they charge almost nothing. I mean, they
charge
the
almost
fares
nothing.
are almost nothing. I mean, large numbers of people don't even pay the minimal fares. I mean, a lot of youngsters, you'll see them on a regular basis walking through the turnstiles. I mean, for me, it's just ridiculous not to pay, because it's like 300, 400 pesos. What is that in dollar terms?
It's about 3 times less than the
cents.
subway.
Yeah.
And almost that for the
Yeah,
buses
so
also.
heavily subsidised by the government. Yeah, when the government withdraws that subsidy, and they're always reticent to pay the subsidy to the bus companies, trains even more so. But it actually, you know, people here complain. People love to complain, you know, and they will complain about public transport. But generally, it costs next to nothing, and it's very, very good.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
so,
really
I mean,
terrific.
it breaks down sometimes, like everywhere, but generally, you know, I'm going to hop on a bus in a little while. It'll get me where I need to go, you know, and I have many choices as well. So,
No, the transport here is great. There's, you know, I've just come back from being in New York. Let me tell you, the traffic here is wonderfully nothing like New York.
well, especially going to come back to the football match day. I mean, we watched a couple of games at a little cafe opposite our house, and on normally a fairly busy road where there's one bus, the 161 goes up and down there, usually one every 5 minutes or so. There was no traffic. Absolute ghost town. It was incredible when Argentina were playing. And the only thing you would see was the 1/6 of poor bus drivers are probably the only people in Buenos Aires or Argentina who were working, you know, and they kept working. Other people just stopped, you know, trying to get a delivery, you know, like many countries, huge delivery service, you know. There were no deliveries of anything, you know, that had all stopped. There was no traffic. The schools closed down. The schools and colleges didn't close. They put a big screen up in the main hall, and then the students would watch it there. So everybody I know was still working,
They
watched the game at
also,
work.
With
Yeah.
my kids, they let them out early.
Okay, yeah, one or
to-
the other.
to
Yeah,
watch.
they didn't let them out. They kept them in there watching it. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was quite something. But public transport was the one thing that kept running, and I would see the buses go past every now and then. One person, two people, somebody just got let out, or the one or two exceptions in Argentina who don't watch the football. You know,
Yes.
maybe they're not Argentines. Maybe who knows what their thinking
It's
is.
so rare to find
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
My wife, she couldn't name probably 10 teams in Argentina. She has no football background whatsoever, but she's really into it.
This street where you live, and I came back from a game the other day, I couldn't get into the street because there were so many people out on the street celebrating, 45 minutes after the game. Quite incredible. And again, Sunday, we'll see, yeah? I mean, it could go, obviously it's too close to call. One very, very good team in Spain. I'd say one all right team with the best player who's ever lived among their numbers. How do you match that? Who is the best tactician, De La Fuente or Scaloni?
And they're very good friends.
Are they?
apparently.
Okay, yeah.
It'll
And
be
I would also
interesting.
say Scaloni did play for West Ham, so there's my connection there, as a
And he
West Ham.
started at Newell's.
He
so
started in
there's-
Newell's. Well, there you go. We have the
Yeah.
connection there, yeah. But he wore the colours. He wore the claret and blues. So
No, I think he's been brilliant. His decisions have been absolutely wonderful.
good, yeah.
I mean, this will be our swan song, at least from Argentina, I believe.
Yeah, I'm heading off to the UK and then Spain in a couple of days. But we shall keep talking, Joe.
We will do some Zoom.
And maybe talking about, the links between Argentina, Latin America, and the old colonial master in Spain, looking for similarities, comparisons, rivalries, points of contention. Because there's also, a million Argentines living in Spain, or a large number, certainly hundreds of thousands.
And whatever happens in this final of the World Cup, you will be in one of those countries in the next week.
Yeah. 3 semi-finalists and 2 are both finalists. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I can't lose in a way. Well, hasta la vista.
Let's have a wonderful time. We will try our new. We'll see if we can have the same wonderful repartee if we do this on Zoom. I don't know if it's possible, but we will try.
We will try. We'll certainly try. Suerte.
Igualmente.